I still don't know why I went to the meetings, and I don't know if I ever liked it. I don't know if I liked. I'm pretty sure that I didn't like going out in the ministry. I feel like I can admit that now. I didn't like it at all.
So a couple months ago, I talked to atheist YouTuber Heliocentric. He's been doing audits of various churches, and that has included Kingdom Halls of Jehovah's Witnesses. We had a great conversation, and then at the end, Jared, Heliocentric, flipped the script and started asking me some questions. It resulted in yet another fun conversation, so with Jared's permission, I'm going to release that now.
Well, before we skedaddle out of here, unless do you need to go?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, let me ask you a little bit about you and
Sure.
about my dealings going forward with the JDubs.
Oh, yes. This is like my dream question that anyone could ever ask me, so I am so excited.
So, first of all, were you formally disfellowshipped, or did you kind of quietly leave?
I was disfellowshipped. I was disfellowshipped for apostasy, in fact.
Really?
And I recorded my judicial committee.
Explain that, the judicial committee. What is that?
So they just changed the words for, I think, legal reasons. They changed it from, they're just going to call it an elder committee. I think they want to get rid of that word judicial because they've, this is kind of a tangent, but the group's been, facing litigation in other countries like Norway,
right.
And New Zealand and stuff. And the fact that they have these things that are not confessionals, they're called judicial committees, and the rules for them are very clear. I think that they're trying to just change it. But the way they work is it's 3 elders sit down with the sinner, and they try and move you. They shame you for what you've done, but their goal is to try and move you to repentance.
Right.
Now, if you are unrepentant, you will be disfellowshipped. Or if it's like apostasy, you might just be screwed. It's a little unclear to me with some of these new rule changes. If it like it used to be back in my day, Jared, it was like if you committed fornication, that's your disfellowship. Now,
really,
these hippy dippy liberal Jehovah's Witnesses that started existing 2 weeks ago when this Watchtower released, I don't know. I don't know, but they're changing it a little bit to give people more chances to say that they're sorry before they kick you out. It kind of feels like they're doing a 3 strikes instead of you get 1 judicial.
Yeah,
I think that's a slight change, but sorry, I kind of went on a tangent and.
No, that's okay. Can I go on a really quick tangent?
Please do.
I shouldn't be sharing this with you because I'm like sharing your history with you.
I don't care.
But something in the Crisis of Conscience book that was so hilarious to me was that the governing body had determined that adultery only counts if it is penetrative sex with a woman.
And so that's an amazing part of that book.
He mentions this story where a dude has sex with a gopher, and then his wife divorces him.
It was a gopher. I remember that it was bestiality.
It was some form of bestiality.
It was bestiality for sure.
Yeah, he says explicitly, the husband had sex with an animal, some kind of animal, and then the wife freaks out and divorces him. And she gets disfellowshipped because it couldn't properly be counted as adultery because it wasn't sex with a woman.
Yeah.
They
treat like the Bible exists, obviously, but the like rules and regulations of Watchtower are like the Constitution for them, and they're constantly parsing like, well, what did the founders mean when they wrote this? And it's like, what? They just made it up. Just don't worry about that. Make a new rule that's better. And that's like they get themselves into such shit. And what's funny, I think that Crisis of Conscience, I really want to reread it. I picked it up a couple months ago with the intention of rereading it. It's a very similar moment in the organization, I think, where there is a huge shift. They're making a lot of changes to kind of scramble to stop the bleeding from, when Franz was writing it, it was like after 1975, around the time when he was like appointed at the governing body. And now they're having similar like dwindling numbers, just kind of due to stagnation. They brought in 2 new guys, kicked 1 guy out of the governing body. and they're changing a lot of rules, but it's having the effect that it had in Crisis of Conscience, where it's just everyone's like, well, what about this scenario? What about this scenario? And so the governing body's job ends up just being like, yes, this gets you disfellowship. No, that's that's a paddling. That's 40 lashes. They're just kind of figuring out the severity of certain punishments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so tell me about your apostasy judicial hearing.
The way it works is really bizarre. Now, it happened during COVID. It probably would have been more emotionally...
Oh, man, so you're fresh out of this.
Yeah, but it also is like almost 4 years ago. There were a few phone calls with them. I met with them a couple times because they wanted to, like, I don't know, almost like gather evidence of like what I've been doing. Because they found out that I've been posting online. And that's what got me labeled as an apostate. Because witnesses within... They started spreading around like, oh my God, Jake is posting on YouTube. And so then the elders call me and they're like, we have to have a judicial committee because there are accusations of apostasy. And so we set up a meeting. And
so what were the videos that they were looking at?
Well, the really weird thing is they are really just looking at the existence of my YouTube page. Like, just the fact that it exists at all is the problem. And the fact that it's like, I mean, I think my first video was called, like, Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult and here's why. So that, you know, they got pretty solid. Okay. I wasn't being, like, subtle. Like, well, maybe
okay, so it wasn't like something. Your Star Wars videos that they were like,
oh,
hey,
no.
There. Okay.
No, that they were fine with all of my Star Wars content, which did exist. But that in podcast form with my witness friends. But... no, you're not allowed to say that the cult leaders are cult leaders. And they're right. By their standards, absolutely, I'm an apostate. Makes sense. But I wanted to go through the rigmarole. Like, I could have just written a letter.
Yeah.
I could have just written a letter, or I could have decided not to. But I don't know why my instinct was to just kind of blow everything up, put myself through this process, I think, because I knew what it was going to be. Like, I found out that, like, oh shit, this is a cult, and that means that I'm gonna have to leave, and that means I'm gonna be disfellowshipped. Like, shit, I'm going to lose my family. And so you have to take your time to mentally prepare for that. So by the time I had the judicial committee, I knew that I was fine with it happening in the way that you can be fine with things that aren't fine happening to you. Right. I had made peace with it in my head. I had listened to people's recordings of what they, like on YouTube, of like they secretly recorded them. I'm like, okay, so this is kind of how they go. And I also wanted to record mine just for posterity so I could at least prove that if people started spreading rumors about me, that I had a recording. Because frankly, when someone is announced as disfellowshipped, they don't say what it's for. They're not like, they weren't like, Jacob Kreitz is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses because he did X, Y, and Z. Yeah. So whether or not you are like a pedophile or a murderer, or you post videos on YouTube making fun of the governing body, those are the same. You get the same announcement at the meeting. Wow. And I was really worried that the assumption would be, because I am married, I was worried that the assumption would be that I like was unfaithful and like I had cheated. And because nobody was going to know, and my wife was still a witness at the time, I didn't want anyone to think that. So I wanted it on a practical level to be like, no, this is what they said. But then I looked at my state's recording laws, and it turns out it's perfectly legal to do it and post it, so I did. Yeah.
Did you have them on a hidden camera?
That's how that went. It was on Zoom because it was COVID, so I just had like OBS running in the background.
Wow.
I know.
Link me that video because I really want to see it.
I will. I will, yeah. Oh, God. The beginning of it makes me so mad because the audio's out of sync. It mostly doesn't matter because it's mostly just a recording, but I do a little intro that's bad. You can skip past that. The audio on this video will be totally in sync. I've learned. The error of my ways. I focused so hard on it. But yeah, so that's how that shit went.
Wow. So then, I mean, that announcement happened and then no contact after that?
I think my case was a little bit unique in the sense that most people, like, when they start drifting away from meetings, as they would call it, like what I now would call fading, like people who try and leave without going through the process of of a judicial committee or having to write a letter. They just like, I just want to leave this group and not deal with it anymore. You will get a bunch of messages from people like who are worried about you and trying to get you to come back to the meetings, or like, hey, come out in field service with me. Can we come over? They want to positive peer pressure, is their phrase, back into the group. And I didn't really get that because from the outside world's perspective, or, of Jehovah's Witnesses, I kind of went from being a Jehovah's Witness in good standing and I was a ministerial servant to being disfellowship for being an apostate. And like, I think word spread quickly to like, he's posting stuff online because I had friends all over the state just from being around for a while and traveling around. So I think word just spread. And so it really was like none of my friends reached out to me at all. It really was just like my friends I did that podcast with, it was like a message on Discord and that was it. And I still haven't heard from them.
What was the message?
It was just like, we love you, but we can't go down this path with you. We're going to have to obey the directions of this fellowship, something, clinical like that. But, now it's been a few years since I've heard from my sister. And I only deal with my parents if there's like a family emergency and we have to. They're mostly like, if I called them, they would pick up the phone right now. But, well, I think. But they wouldn't talk just about anything other than you're in the hospital or something.
What would happen if you just knocked on their door?
Oh, I think about that all the goddamn time. Gotten very close a few times.
Do it.
I can't, man. I can't do it. I think it's too hard. The last conversation I had with them was actually pretty good. And also I owe them money. And I don't want to get into that conversation. That's because they would totally make it about that. Like, sadly, that's the few times they've talked. It's usually about you owe us some money. When I had surgery, they were there because it was a big surgery. But yeah, I haven't heard from them in several months now. And yeah, and it's kind of fresher for my wife because it's just more new. I still, just earlier today, there's a few JWs that I still follow and they haven't blocked me. I don't think that they follow me, but they just, I can still see their posts because they just haven't unfriended me since I got disfellowshipped. And so there's like a couple people, like I've seen a couple posts from this year's convention from like my cousins. I scroll through and I see some pictures of my aunts and uncles. I saw a friend. He started to go bald when he's my age, but he started to go bald like a couple years before I left. He shaved his head. But just recently, hot off the press, you're allowed to have a beard now as a Jehovah's Witness. Yep. I'm sure you've heard the good news of beards and the gospel, of course. And so I saw this picture of him. I haven't seen him in years now, but I saw this picture of his face, and he had this beard, and I went, whoa! I get little updates that way, but it's sad a little bit to me. Now that I follow so many ex-witnesses and just friends from work or from life, whatever, everybody that I see, no matter where they are in life, is doing things that make them happy, and they're hanging out with their friends and they see their family and they're doing fun stuff. Like, everybody has shitty days, but mostly I see a lot of people who are making the best out of their life. Yeah. And whenever I see these JW posts, it's always strained smiles when they're at the convention or out in service. And maybe it's not even that, because it's not always that stuff, but I think they're still doing that. I can't imagine having to go to the meetings every Sunday, like, especially now that I haven't done it for so long. I'm trying to think of, like, God, if I was still going, like, if I still didn't have Saturdays at all, just no weekend days to myself, which means no day to yourself at all, like, that would suck. And like, it's just nice to be able to give someone a birthday present, like just little things. And, not for nothing, not thinking that the world is going to end constantly. That's a huge weight off your mind. Now, you might feel like that for secular reasons, the world's going to end in some systemic way, but not like, oh my God, it's going to be God versus Satan.
Two separate questions then.
Sure.
If I were to approach a Jehovah's Witness on the street, what should I talk to them about? As somebody in my position.
Yeah. So Jehovah's Witnesses are going to shut down really fast if you come at them with something that appears to be what they view as apostate. So if you went up and asked them if they have heard about the child sexual abuse scandals within the group, they're if you like approach them at a literature card, they might shut down the literature card and just walk away because they're just like, we're not going to deal with that.
Interesting.
And for the most part, they weirdly just aren't really equipped to deal with objections that aren't strictly based on the Bible. Like, they're really not given the tools to defend their group from that kind of stuff, court cases. So what I would do probably is ask them sincere questions about how they feel about things. I think that's what I would do. The reason why I think that is because I've always wondered this, and then I had some Mormons knock on my door a month or two ago. 2 kids. Broke my heart. They're probably like 14-year-old white dudes, little dudes with their suits that are a little bit too big and their name tags. Sorry, not suits. And I just I let them give their pitch because I remember that it's hard. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hear it. And, but I just kind of asked them things I genuinely wanted to know because I still am learning a lot about Mormonism. And then I just kind of asked them how they feel about certain things, like just about the fact that they have to be here and we want to be here. It's like, well, okay, well, but would there be consequences for you if you didn't? I think stuff like that. And I think the goal can't really be to try and change their minds, but to leave them with something. And a witness would say the same thing about knocking on someone's door. Like, you want to leave them with something that sticks with them and that makes them think and maybe, Google something later. Just make them think critically about literally any part of their life. Because once you start that slippery slope in your head of, wait a minute, I'm trapped. Like, once I had that realization, I just had that realization once as a witness, like, oh, I can't leave for any reason. And like, once I noticed it, I could never unnotice it. And it never stopped freaking me out. Even though it took years after that to do research, I would just think about it. What if I'm wrong, but I'm afraid to look? But what?
Right.
Why is that the case? Well, because it's Satan, but how would I know? That's the whole point. Yeah. That sort of mental anguish that you were describing earlier of like, is this God or is this Satan? It's the same thing. I think that's why it's so hard to genuinely have conversations. Like, I've tried to have witnesses on the show. I've had like 2 people actually record with me, but one demanded that I not release it. Well, I told them that I would not do it if they really felt uncomfortable about it. And I lost the damn recording too, so I don't even have it. I was looking hard the other week. But that's like 2 people. And, I get a lot of comments from witnesses on my channel. Yeah. And it's just bizarre to me that they don't even have like an infrastructure to defend themselves on the internet. Like, that exists for trad wives and Mormons. There are people who will just defend themselves on TikTok or whatever.
Right.
If they see someone shit talking them in the comments, they'll be like, no, you're wrong. I believe in Jesus Christ, and here's why. But witnesses never do that. They will just say something mean in my comments, and then they're gone.
Fly away. Yep.
Yeah, so they just, like, their instinct is just to be mean and then leave. So that's tough.
My next question: what advice can you give me for my next Kingdom Hall visit?
Oh, what I would be genuinely interested in, as someone who talked about this, is that like I really don't get to talk to Jehovah's Witnesses anymore because they won't. They won't talk to me, which my fault, admittedly. But ask them like, what do you feel that you get out of this? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? And I would like to hear that, because you are a person who's not a witness and is going there as a visitor and having genuine reactions. If they ask you what you thought about something, be like, I thought it was kind of weird how everyone was just reading from the paragraphs. Never seen anything like that before. If the singing is kind of like flat and no one's into it, be like, man, I've been to some churches where people are fired up. What's going on with you guys?
Yeah.
Our instinct is to be polite to people, I think. And even if you're like confrontational online, like I am sometimes, like I'm not like that in person. And I don't, like, I've never gone up to a witness and talked to them at a cart. And I could have, because I passed them a lot because they're downtown still. But what they need to hear is just normal people talking to them and being like, hey, that's kind of weird, you know? That is just something that they never hear. So in some way, getting their thoughts, because the meetings are easy to dissect for what their purpose is and what the effect it has on the audience. But I still don't know why I went to the meetings, and I don't know if I ever liked it. I don't know if I liked. I'm pretty sure that I didn't like going out in the ministry. I feel like I can admit that now. I didn't like it at all. There are people who did, who were like, man, I thought I was cooking. I thought I was just preaching the good news of the kingdom, man. Like, I just thought I had the truth. That part of it wasn't what attached me to the group. The thing for me was just being that cog in a machine feeling of just like, I know what my little role is. And I like seeing everybody work together as volunteers for a cause. I thought that was cool, and that seemed godly to me.
Yeah. This is a really like messed up thought that kind of pops into my brain now and again. I usually say to people that like, man, I was a better person when I was a Christian. And I know that a lot of religious people or formerly religious people can't say that. Now, granted, I wasn't on board with gay people. I was, protesting outside of abortion clinics. A lot of things that I kind of wince at or cringe at now. But I had a lot of love in my heart for people. Where was I going with that?
But maybe not so much anymore.
To some extent, yeah. I think, I still deeply love people, but there is, especially in my darker season of the soul, it was like, yeah, everyone's just kind of a peon, everyone's expendable. Thankfully I've kind of come out of that, but
that's good. No, I get that. I get that we all have so much access to what everybody thinks all the time. Like I think about that. Like, I don't think that anybody is more, I don't think like as a collective, as a species, that like we're dumber because the idiocracy is real and shit. It's like, well, I just don't think, like, not everybody knew what everyone was thinking all the time. As far as I know, that person standing over there, they are a genius. But now I know, no, because I can look at their Facebook and they think that the Earth was created in a lab 5 years ago. Or that's not a real thing, but that way I'm not offending anyone. Every time I make, like, I've always used, like, flat earthers as a baseline, and I always get someone like, well, we prefer geocentrist in the comments. No. I always get, there's always one, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, how did you get here? How did you end up on this channel?
Yeah, I, like the heliocentric thing, occasionally, I've gotten some, like, I'm sure you can relate to this, that so many comments are just, like, totally illegible and, like, incoherent. And it's like, I don't know if you're insulting me, complimenting me. Like, are you taking issue with something I'm saying?
Yes.
Like,
some people, and, like, they'll have like 3 commas.
Yeah. Like every other word is in all caps, but it's like, it doesn't seem like it's the right word.
Somehow formatting their comment like with a typewriter, like an old one. And then like, I'm like, oh shit, well, I can't go back, so I just have to. And this key sticks. Like, I don't understand. I'm glad to hear you say that, actually, because I don't know sometimes if it's a language barrier and it's just like people using a machine translator and then copying it and pasting it into their comment box. But then why are they watching it if they can't even understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It seems like there's like weird copy pasta people where they're just like, I go on atheist channels or I go on X whatever channels and I just I tell them that they're wrong. Like, it seems like I guess they're just people like that. And I preferred when I didn't know that people like that existed. I don't like, because sometimes you just see a post that sucks, has a lot of likes, has like 35,000 likes, and you're like, I didn't know that I hated 35,000 people all at once today, but now I do because they agree with that stupid thing I just read. Like, we just have more opportunities to see the worst in each other now.
Gosh.
So I struggle with that. I struggle between the arc of history bends towards justice, all that shit. And then sometimes it's like, but actually no. And everyone's kind of stupid and sucks. And so do I, and I'm not that smart. And fuck us, we suck.
Yeah, kind of a weird note to end on, but that's all I got. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this or other stuff on my channel, please do subscribe to my Patreon. I make member-exclusive stuff and release videos early. And I'd love to be able to make more stuff full-time even. So if you want to chip in, that'd be awesome. If not, no sweat.